Hello, welcome to Beginner's Night. I will be talking about some basic Python scripting, kind of some automation of mainly web stuff. How many people actually, does anyone know Python already? Right. Does everyone know what it is? If you don't know, it's a scripting language. Why would we go with Python? It's a little bit easy to learn. It's easy to automate tasks. It's usually installed on Linux. Most of them kind of actually require it in some ways. And there's a large amount of libraries already there for you. So this is a basic, hello world. There's not much to it. Oops. Let's actually turn on something here. Python files, Python scripts are stored in, files ending in .py. There's several ways you can run them, like that, or if you have that, little magic line at the top there, you can run them like that. And yeah. So I guess, right. So if you want to grab input from a user, that's how you do it. You can store it in a variable like that and print it out to the screen. Right. Reading from a file. Yeah. So you'll commonly sometimes you'll want to read something from a file in order to do something with it. Use something called the with, which will make sure it actually gets closed afterwards. That goes together with this, which is how you would output to a file. You open it, so it's, tell it you need to write to it, and then call write on it. Okay, what that file actually does, and it helps if I can type, something like this. This assumes that you have a list of first names and last names, last name, comma, first name, and you want to make them first, last. Sorry. This is actually a special way to kind of do multiple at once. I'm going to come in there and, let's fix that. Yes. So we've got that file. I don't output them for some reason, and I output them to a sex file. Got anything to add? Yeah. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. So I guess a practical use of using Python would be actually interacting with websites. And there's many things you'd want to do. You maybe want to automate some repetitive task. Scrape information from something. You've got an API you want to interact with, or say you have a ton of switches that have web configuration you want to do all at once on. So one of the common ways to do that with Python is using the requests library. It makes interacting with requests easier. Technically, Python does have something to do in its standard library, urllib2. It's a little hard to work with. Documentation's not the best. Documentation for requests is actually very, very good. People keep asking for it to be included in the standard library, but there's reasons that doesn't happen. So with Python, if it's a dependency, you have to install it. It's not necessarily there, which is a little bit of a downside, but Python has package manager that comes with it, pip install requests. You can, Debian, apt-get install Python requests. Windows, I think you can use pip. Okay, that's what it looks like. So let's say you have so this is how you make a basic HTTP request with requests. You import the library. Requests actually understand, kind of has nice little functions like that for all of like the basic HTTP verbs: get, post, put, delete, and I think most of the other ones. Okay, yeah. Let me see what. It's been a long day. So here's an example of doing that. You can get the content back.
Isn't content bytes instead of just?
Content is bytes.
You can do just .text if you want.
You can do .text to get actual text, which comes back as a string. Depending on what you're doing with it, you want one or the other. Or you can also get interesting things like headers. Headers are little bits of information about the request and the response that the client was sent for the request. The client sending it to the server. The response, the server sending it back. For instance, we can look at the headers we got. We can look at the headers we got back from Google. And if you were here for Matt Sullivan's talk a couple weeks ago, you can see X-frame options as being sent back, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, you can in requests you can get Let's say we want your content length. You can get headers much like that. Now, the more important one is actually setting headers. Here's an example of setting a user agent, which when you're interacting with web apps or sites or whatever, whatever's talking HTTP you want to interact with on an automated basis, you might have to worry about user agents. They're supposed to identify the type of the client that's running, what's browser, what's whatever. There's actually an interesting history, which I'll link that because it's quite long, but it's somewhat funny. I'll link that in the Slack as well as these slides. But you'll commonly find, I've noticed this is common in like embedded devices that expect you to use like Internet Explorer. They'll require that you present that, so sometimes you may need to fake it. And sometimes you also have sites that will actually filter for the common automated ones. But I actually have, which is probably not running. Sorry. Okay. So, oh dear. So I have a small little example web server here that's checking for the user agent. It's telling me it doesn't like me because I'm not what it's looking for. So with requests, if I want to send that send that user agent back to something else, I can pass this dictionary that has the name of the header and the value, in this case user agent, which happens to have correct. Oh, I don't actually have one made for that. I can't type today. I think I just made one up. It's called that. If I give it the headers, I can see I got back a response. I can get the status code to make sure that.
You get it snake noises because it's Python?
You do get snake noises because it's Python. User agents, authentication. Many times, an API will require some form of authentication. Sometimes it's just adding something onto the URL with an API key. Sometimes it can be one of this auth header here. And if you don't know about auth, basically, or this kind of authentication, you send the header called authorization, tell it what type it is, and you give it the value. There's several types out there. One of the common ones is basic auth, which never run basic auth over HTTP. That's not over SSL. Because all it is, it's the username and password, username : password, base64 encoded. Anyone can grab that back. You also see something like stuff like token, where it expects you to put a value that uniquely identifies you. Check whatever. If there's documentation available for whatever you're trying to interact with, that will usually say. Sometimes they will send back a header called www-authenticate, which actually tells you what it expects. Some are not quite that nice. Yeah, that's not right. So, what do I have? I do not. So, once again, I've got a nice little okay. That's hard to read from over here.
Spelled basic wrong.
Yep. Lovely.
That's a C.
I can't read. Okay, you know what? There. Basically, I'll have to ask me for whatever it is. Obviously, that doesn't work. So I happen to know that the username, I don't know what the username is, I don't know what the password is, I happen to know it's also very bad. So I'm going to 200. I know it's so I'm going to actually do a small little script here to try to see if I can brute force it, which I know I can because it's terrible. And in order to give it, now requests actually, because basic auth is so common, it actually has a nice little helper to deal with that. You just give it the authentication details instead of actually specifying the header. I'm going to check if it's and so I'm going to just go through these. Still, I can. Oh, higher than that, apparently. Okay. That one. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and sorry, that didn't quite work. You got the authentication, and let's say send a token. Cookies. Oftentimes you will see cookies are a little bit of information sent back by the server, stored by the client, and then usually sent back. Usually to store some sort of state, usually sessions or authentication details, things that don't necessarily need to be, as well as things that don't necessarily need to be stored on the server. Although there are better ways to do that now. If you want to get cookies from with requests, I don't know why I'm looking over there anymore. Okay. Yep. You can list the cookies here, or you can, are there any? Sure, Google, let's grab that. I don't know what that is, but that's, you would grab it. You can also set them in a similar manner that you do headers. Just give it a dictionary with the name of your name of header and the value, and pass it in when you make your request. So now you've gotten your data from the server. Now you want to deal with it. The most common formats when you're dealing with the web, HTML, which is meant for you to see. It's what pretty much everything returns when you're browsing to it. There's also JSON, which is and XML, which are usually used by APIs. JSON's, I think, becoming the most popular one, largely due to the fact that it's a lot easier to deal with. So JSON data. If you've never seen JSON data before, it looks like that. It's, key value type of deal. You can. It's kind of it's the, what does it stand for?
Which one?
JSON?
JavaScript
object notation. It comes from JavaScript, as the name suggests. Say we have that. Request has a really nice little helper method on it. The responses that you can just automatically interpret as JSON. Gives you back the entire structure in a form of a dictionary. In case you're wondering, in case you happen to already have a string that has JSON in it, that's how you do it in Python anyway. It's built right in standard library. So let's use an example here of using an actual API. We've got a. Is that the right? Oh, that's the right one. So this is our data from our last cyber defense competition. And I happen to know that we have an API that has things such as public information, such as team scores, or the scoreboard. So this is an example of what an API might. That does not look well up there, does it? Is that better? I know that has information such about the teams or scores. I also know about the scoreboard. So let's say we want to grab this information and do something with it later. So we can see that it's got the scoreboard object. It's got an entry for each of the teams and information about them and their scores. So here we go. have a script for this handy. So we grab our requests. We import our request objects. I just happen to have the URL here in it's a convenient option. We get it back as JSON, and we're going to write it to a file. It's just CSV as the name of the team, total score, and what place they got. So run that. Get back, and we can see we got the teams back with their very high precision score for some reason. Any questions so far? Yeah. Well, yep. That's all I've got. Do you have anything to add?
You want to mention what you did recently, Matt, in terms of scraping?
Oh, yes.
Without saying too much, of course.
Yeah, that's the hard part. So it's just an example of some of the things you can do with Python. I used another library called Scrapey to actually grab a bunch of forum posts.
In fact, all of them, right?
All of them for a certain subforum. The contents of that we'll leave for now. Yeah. I don't know what to say about it. I don't know. You can do things like that. You can grab information from APIs. I think Keen several weeks ago showed that was the light bulb thing.
Oh yeah, that wasn't with HTTP, but yeah.
It wasn't HTTP, but it was sockets and Python. You can automate things like that. Yeah. Any questions? So that's all I have. Okay then. Thank you.